Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 150th episode of the Criterion Connection. I'm Wade,
And I'm Joe.
and we're here. Sadly, I didn't think our 150th episode was going to be social distancing. It's very weird. I really hope that episode 200, we're not doing this again.
I was kind of hoping we do all the episodes like this, Wade.
Oh, well, I'm not.
Even when I'm in your house.
Oh, okay. You want to film way over there?
Yeah, at
Okay.
least at least 6 feet away.
Okay, we could do that. Yeah, so we're here to talk about probably one of the most famous, I wouldn't say famous, I guess film wise, famous film. I don't think the average film goer is going to be like, what's Bicycle Thieves?
So you're gonna say average Joe?
Oh, the average Joe won't be like, I don't know what that is. Is it like Triple X? Is it like Bad Boys for Life? No, it is not. It's actually, no, it might be a shot for shot remake of Bad Boys 2. I'm not sure. But we're here to talk about the Italian film from 1948 by Vittorio De Sica. It's Italian. It's neo-realism Italian film post World War II.
Well, yeah, all the
Very
Italian
important.
neo-realist films were post World War II.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know, you have to point that out. This is definitely post World War II.
Yeah.
World War II
So
depression in Italy.
yeah. So um, this was actually one of the units I paid attention to really well in my film history class. Because it's such a profound kind of film movement. Like, it takes some cues from French poetic realism, but this is like an actual movement. And for a movie that's, you know, glorified and used as an example of the Italian neo-realist movement, this movie was hated by every Italian neo-realist at the
Yes.
time.
Yes, it was hated by every Italian. Not, I don't think every Italian, but like the majority of Italians because it paints it in a negative light. Also, the author of the book was not a big fan of this either.
Yeah, it's but it some of the key characteristics, like if I were talking to somebody who knew nothing, I'd be like, these are filmed out in the city ruins, not on on location. They tend to be sad, and they show poor people dealing with the post-war strife and changes in society. And that's essentially like a good summary of kind of your big points.
Yeah.
Because all their studios like were mostly bombed out. Because you have to. A lot of people have to remember like they're the lost like Axis power. Most people think of Germany and Japan, but Italy also being an Axis power, they had their share of carpet bombings, and it really messed up a lot of their infrastructure. And then post-war, I mean, they're also kind of they're transitioning out of a fascist government. They, they're also being, thrown up and being punished for sending the world into a second world war. And so there was a lot of poverty, and there was a lot of buildings that were just bombed out and ruined. Um, and in this movie, we follow a father trying to get a job in post-war Italy. He's obviously part of the lower class, and you can see by the mob of people outside of the job office. And the guy has one announcement. Like,
Yeah.
if that's not indicative of the kind of place we're at economically for them, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And essentially, the movie's about this guy who's been trying to get a job. He's been going to, I guess, an unemployment office to try and find one. and he gets a chance, but he needs a bicycle. He had just pawned his bicycle to get food,
Yeah.
and then him and his wife, they sacrifice all of their sheets for their bed to get the bicycle back, and on his first day of work, it gets stolen.
Yes. It's you could really feel the depression through this movie. Definitely through it. The guy, the main character's name is Antonio Ricci.
Well, remember, it's not his voice.
Yes, that's true. He was voiced over.
He was dubbed.
Yeah.
But he plays the body of Antonio. Because that was another common thing is he's not a professional actor. Most of these films didn't have professional actors.
Well, visually, he's pretty damn good.
Him and Bruno are very good, and they're not professionals.
It's just like when he loses that bike, when he looks around for it, when he first has the realization, he's just looking around, not doing the search yet, but just looking around for it. You could see his face get more and more worry, and you feel for the guy. You're like, oh man, because you spend the first 15 minutes with him getting the job, trying to get getting the bike, and he's like taking his son, let's go work.
And he's super happy, super proud that he can provide for his family. He's like, the pay is okay, but we're gonna get something.
Yeah.
And it's him and his wife, his young son, and they have a baby. Is the other factor that people forget about. You only see it, for 10 seconds before he goes to work that first day.
Yeah.
And it's putting yourself in his shoes. You're following. He's your point of view character, and it's somebody trying to do the right thing, trying to provide for his family, get a job, be productive, and it gets taken from him.
Yeah, it's just General Ernest. He's very earnest and he's good-hearted. And just watching this movie, you see his desperation. You see him kind of become a monster. He's kind of mean near the end. He's just kind of there's a great scene near the tail end of the movie where it's after the church and Bruno gets hit.
It's one where he doesn't mean it. He just is lashing out.
And there's a great scene after the church where they're walking out of the church or whatever, and Bruno he's doing his social distancing. He's at least 10 feet away from him, and the shot is the two walking, but they're very far apart, emotionally and literally. And then it gets to the point where Ricci's not even paying attention, and Bruno almost gets hit by two cars. That's a little later. That's a little later.
That's after they. I don't want to say they make up because they don't really make up, but it's when Bruno he gets closer, and it's after because there's a point where Antonio's his half-hearted attempt at a quote-unquote apology is where he asks Bruno if he's tired, and he's like, have a seat. And then they go to the restaurant, and I think at one point they end up on the bridge where they almost see a kid drown.
For some reason, I thought it was the kid that stole the bike at one point, but I was like, no, that's a small kid. It's definitely not him.
Yeah, no, we do come across the kid who stole the bike.
Yeah, the one has a clean record. He has a very clean record.
Yeah, apparently he also has some sort of head injury.
Yeah, I was thinking, does he have an epilepsy thing? That's what I thought it was. He had some kind of epilepsy or just had a seizure or something. I thought
he was just playing it up. That's where we get to the pinnacle of no matter what this guy does, he's not getting his bike back.
Yeah.
He even finds the kid who stole his bike.
And a whole
and,
mob of people
and he
basically against them.
literally almost gets beaten to death for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is kind of part of, I'm guessing what they feel is the negative portrayal of Italians, is that you only have one character that's, got a moral compass that you follow, aside from like his friends that help him look for the bike, and other bystanders like when crimes happen. Um, Other than that, like everybody just seems to be uh, in a general state of being annoyed
Yes.
and shoving each other around, like kicking kids and saying "beat it,"
Yeah, like
or
it's
trying to lure a kid into something. Who knows? That one guy at the piazza where he's like, Bruno, you like this bell? Huh? You like this bell? How much for the bell? You like this bell? And Bruno's like, please leave me alone.
basically it's the movie can be summed up in like desperate men do desperate things. Especially near the end, the climax of the film, it's not really the when he confronts the thief. It's more of they're at the stadium.
Yeah, and he sees the unattended bike.
Yeah, and he's got that dilemma, and you're like, oh man. At this point, you're like thinking to yourself, this movie has worked magic. The climax is, please don't steal the bike. Please don't steal the bike, Richie. Please don't.
A guy who's that desperate, and he's like, you know, everything has prevented me from getting my bike back. Nobody's punishing this kid, this thief. And he's like, maybe I can get away with it and get a bike. And he sees hundreds of bikes, and then he sees one off to the side.
And he tells Bruno go, and then spoilers. He walks to. He's the worst lookout ever. He was like, "Is there anyone watching?" No. He grabs the bike immediately. Someone's like thief, and I was not expecting the entire population of the city to chase him down. Like this, he's just running, and then like he's riding the bike, and then like out another corner of like the street and alley, another whole mob of people chase him. It's like Jesus.
Him was letting out.
Yeah, and Bruno sees it, and boy,
And he sees his mob essentially either going to beat his dad and they end up dragging him towards the police station. And Bruno missing the tram and coming over and crying and being like, what's going on? It touches the owner's heart of the bike, the owner of the bike.
yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm not going to press charges. Shame is enough for you.
It's kind of like, I'm not gonna say the only showing of compassion, but it's like one of the only people showing compassion in this whole movie. Usually, the first reaction is anger or lash out.
The other guys in the mob's like, if it were me, you'd be in jail.
Yeah, and then you conclude the movie with, it's not really a lonely walk, but maybe mentally, emotionally, it's a lonely walk. You just see his face, like Richie's face. There's so much shame and embarrassment, and he's fighting back tears. Like, man, that almost got me tearing up a little bit.
Holding back tears and letting them, fall every so often. And there's that shot of them just sitting on the curb.
Yeah.
And just all out of hope.
We don't get any resolution. He doesn't get his bike back. The last shot is them blending into a crowd of people, and it just makes you think, like, they blend into a crowd of people, so it makes you think that's just one story of one person. And also, it's kind of, yeah, and it's also full circle, kind of. Like, he tries stealing that one person's bike. The kid who stole his, Richie's bike, what was their days ago? Like, is this a cycle? It keeps a revolving door of like it's constantly happening of desperate people will steal a bike, and then that desperate person that lost his bike will steal another bike. It's another thing that we have to talk about is the cinematography.
Yeah, a lot of moving camera. I mean, it's all shot on location. um, and it's just on the streets of Italy, and you gotta haul this this big camera back then around
Yeah.
and slide it up and down dollies.
And what's great about the cinematography, another one is almost every shot is dense. There's something in the background, someone in the background. A good example is when they're in the thieves' house. Actually, the thief is in the crowd faking a head injury or having a head injury, whatever. The cop is up there, basically saying what's going on, and they pass by a window, and across the street in a different house, you see a woman with a baby close the window. Little things in the background make it like, man, this is like very depth, the very like dense. That's the word, dense. Like there's so many things going on.
It's very crowded almost all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Rome, very populated city in Italy, but you know, it's still like it seems like everybody's on top of one another. Like, remember when he tries to get the bus?
Yes.
And it's a giant line, and people are like pushing to fill a bus. It reminds you of like the subway in Japan, where it's like there's a person's job to literally pack people in.
Man, it's a little claustrophobic at times. Like you can't have a personal. This guy never really has a personal moment ever. So he's just kind of reacting to everything because he can't have a time to himself to focus and think and do all that. Another thing to praise aside from the cinematography is probably the score. The music in this it really sets the mood. It's very sorrowful.
It's very understated too.
Yes.
It doesn't overpower what's happening. It just accents it.
Yeah, you really notice it when there's like no dialogue going on and it's like him walking somewhere. You really hear the sorrowful music and it's just like, ah, man. So yeah, this movie is pretty much treated like a milestone of, you know, like you said, you learned it in film school. This is my first time watching it, so not in film school.
It's one of those, like, I mean, at the time, well, I shouldn't say at the time, a few years later, considered the best film ever made. You know, decades after that, still in the top 10 of most rankings. It's an important film in one of the most important film movements of all time. So I mean, there's just a huge, like, there's just a big trifecta of those movies. You got Rome Open City, you have this, you have Umberto D, which is what I consider easily one of the saddest movies of all time. And it goes above this.
Though there was a deleted scene that was never put into the film, and I don't know how I'd react. There's never that scene where Ricci falls asleep and has a dream that his bike is in an operating room with a bunch of scary clowns. It was very weird that was not in the scene, you know.
There was that one dinosaur thing that he was looking out with Bruno.
Yeah, that was really weird. I don't know what, you know, am I thinking of the wrong movie?
I don't know, man.
Maybe Ricci's a loner, a rebel.
Wouldn't Dottie understand?
So we're going to do something different, Joe. We're going to change it up a little bit, the show format. So instead of buy, rent, or skip, it's simply going to be, do you recommend it or do you not recommend it? And you could say if you want to stream it or buy it, must own, whatever. What would you say?
Well, this is definitely a recommend. It's one that, you know, we've come across these all the time, that if you're a cinephile, somebody very interested in movie making or the history of film, this would be a must own. But I think it's worth watching at least once for most people. I mean, it is a very sad movie. or less, maybe less sad, but more like desperate, and doesn't give you a satisfactory ending. You know, it's one that it the ending is gonna real like there's so many people conditioned to a happy ending that when this one hits, it's gonna hit real hard. But it is, and even for having amateur actors, even for overdubbing one of your lead actor's voice, it is a masterpiece.
This is I would also highly recommend this for anyone. Like I would not watch it. It is sad. If it was an American film of this time, it would probably have at the end there'd be like a very like the score will swell and like probably a major key. There's no like the bike shows up and it's like, oh my god, my bike, and he hugs his wife and kid. Everything's wonderful.
Different job or
Yeah,
something at the end of the
yeah.
movie.
That's pretty much what if it was like an American made movie in like around this time. That's pretty much what it would have been, but it's not. I will say I watched this movie after watching Mortal Kombat, which is if you're interested, that's our podcast movie review. We're doing Mortal Kombat. Very odd. I'll just tell you that. It was a real downer, I'll just say. But yeah, highly recommend whether to buy it or stream it. It's streamable right now. It's on the Criterion channel and also it's on HBO Max. Yeah. And I definitely would buy it. Just it all matters on. I'm sure Criterion's usually good with their supplements.
Yeah, and it's also like it also depends on whether or not like you are a collector of sorts. If you're into the special features, the Italian neorealist movement is one that passed over a lot as one of those influential movements, but it really is. They have crazy good films and very influential films.
So that's our thoughts on Bicycle Thieves. What is your thoughts on Bicycle Thieves? What's another neo-realism Italian film we should do? Joe mentioned Umberto D. Do I want to be sad more? I think so. During coronavirus, I kind of want to be sad a lot. Yeah, so let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe, share, spreading the word of Criterion Connection. So that's about it. So 150 episodes down. However many Criterion movies are left, there's like 900 or something. Well, we'll be doing this till we're 80. So, till next time, I'm Wade.
And I'm Joe.
And we will see you later.